Hi, this is the Pretend Pros, and I'm your host, Jenny Hoffman, the rookie.
And I am Beth Painter, in this episode, another rookie for sure.
I thought you were an expert in this episode. Your questions were on point. You want to go ahead and introduce what we got coming up in this episode?
Yeah, so we have our first guest. I think that makes us like for real podcasters. We're several episodes in, and we actually got a guest to agree to come on with us.
Someone
So Mollie
actually
Whitacre
wanted to talk to us.
Yeah, I know. I think that's the part that's a little bit crazy. So Jenny and I know Mollie Whitacre from work, but obviously we're not going to talk to her about work today. She has a very impressive soccer career. So not only are we going to talk to her a little bit about what it was like playing soccer, I think we would both consider ourselves novices at soccer. We've been to a few games. I think we're going to learn a lot during this episode about soccer, and then I think we're hoping to catch a game. There's a professional women's team here in Charlotte, and so we're going to try and catch a game, and I think we will be much smarter and much better attendees after we listen to Mollie, who kind of coached us up a little bit. With no further ado, let's get to the interview with Mollie Whitacre. All right, everybody. We want to welcome our first guest. This is Mollie Whitacre. Mollie, we are going to talk about your accomplishments. I am sure that being not only a guest on our podcast, but our first guest is going to be very high on the future listing of all of the things you've achieved as a soccer player, right?
Very top.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So Jenny and I know Mollie as a coworker, but obviously we are not here to talk about that. Mollie has a very impressive soccer career. So she is from Perrysburg, Ohio, still near the Michigan border, so not that close to where Jenny and I went to high school, but at least in the same general part of Ohio. So her high school career, which I think is maybe even more impressive than her college career, which is impressive. She played midfield at Perrysburg High School, appeared in 84 games during her career, scoring 19 goals and registering 20 assists while helping that team over those 4 years have a record of 73 wins, 7 losses, and 4 ties. As the co-captain her senior year, she helped lead the Yellow Jackets to the 2012 Ohio Division I state championship, which is super badass. I knew you had soccer creds, but I think I forgot that you had won a Division I state championship. That is impressive. So during that season, the team was undefeated. They had a perfect score of 20. They scored 108 goals, and probably more impressive, which Mollie will help us know if this is a true statement, only allowed 5 goals for the entire season. That seems really cool. Yeah. The team earned a number 6 national ranking and a number 1 state ranking. There were lots of other accolades that the team got. I think if I list them all, that's going to be the whole podcast. Mollie personally also had many accolades, but the one that also seemed the most impressive to me was first team all-state honors. I would assume that is as cool as I think it is, right? You can say yes. It is very
it's
cool.
A cool achievement.
Yeah. So I'm assuming all of that success in high school is what landed you a 4-year career at a Division I school, Ohio University. So she played 4 years of Division I soccer for the Ohio University
Bobcats.
Good job. I was going to see if I could call her out because she didn't know when we did the basketball ones what the Miami University, what theirs was, but she actually knew the Bobcats.
And I just have to shout out our friend Karen, because if I would have got that wrong, she would have come after me, I'm sure. So Karen, that's for you.
So while at Ohio University, she played 74 games and scored 64 goals. That also, for a non-soccer person, seemed like a pretty impressive record, like almost 1 per game. There were obviously lots of others. Right. Are you sure? That's what the Ohio University website said. So
wow. I think maybe like 6 goals, honestly.
All right.
Let's go 64. That's
time out. This is where I have to blow my whistle. We were doing some research after this episode filmed, and we realized that we were reading the stat line wrong. So Mollie scored 2 goals, not 64, but still a huge accomplishment in the midfield position, as we learned. So kudos to Mollie. And what would an episode of the Pretend Pros be if we got all of our facts straight? So we're still looking for that referee because we definitely need you. And with that, I'll take you back to the regularly scheduled program.
Fun. Yeah, that sounds awesome. There were lots of other stats, but since I didn't know what any of them meant, I didn't include them in here because I was like,
me. This is
what
great.
A goal is. Yes. So that is Mollie's very impressive career. Like I said, I knew you were a legit soccer player. I don't know that I fully recognized it. But after we asked you to be on the podcast, I was like, wow, we are getting a legitimate Ohio soccer star. So welcome to the podcast, Mollie Whitacre.
Thank you. This is fun to be here.
How do you actually become a first team All-American?
All-state.
all state.
Yeah. I believe the way the process is set up is there's a bunch of different high school coaches chosen to be on a committee, and they're all around the state. And then they get together at the end of the season and they format like the team, the first team all state team. And the really impressive thing too is like not only was I on it, but we had another team member from our team
Mhm.
also on it, which I think is a pretty rare thing to have two people from the same team on it. So yeah, it was a really cool experience.
Okay.
So it sounded like you agreed that my assessment of only allowing, what was it, 6 goals, I think, 5 goals. I forget what that stat was. 5 goals. That is almost more impressive than how many goals you scored, right? Like as a team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when you think of 23 games to only let in
Yeah.
5 goals, I think it's like you're like, no, that's a typo. But it was a really cool feat. I think it just shows that like not only did you score more than 100 goals this season, like we had a really good forward group, but also our defense was just like a brick wall back there. So yeah, it's really cool to get that like ratio.
Yeah, for sure. When did you guys start to recognize that, like, maybe this is like state champion, or did you think all 4 years that was the goal, or was this like, "Oh, wow, we're getting better and better. Like maybe winning a state championship is actually something we could do."
Yeah, Perrysburg has always been a really strong soccer school, mainly in our district and region. It's always been like a top competitor. But our senior year, for some reason, we just had this like really good chemistry between seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen, and we were really close. And I think that kind of contributed to a lot of it, of just kind of not being like oh, this freshman's not playing over me type of
Mm,
mentality. It was just like, oh, let's go out there and win. Like we're having so much fun. I don't know if there was a moment where we were really focused on like, we haven't lost a game yet. Let's like not lose. We were
mm,
always like, we're gonna go win. Like that's just what we do type of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So how young were you when you actually started playing soccer?
Well, I was really young, like 5 maybe, and my dad was my coach growing up all the way until
Mm.
high school, maybe even a little before that. A lot of the players on the team would play fall for the high school, and then in the spring would play club soccer, travel around, and there's a couple local clubs that we would all kinda play for.
Now, did you play any other sports growing up, or it was always soccer from 5 until your high school and college days?
I played basketball, not very well, but I would play it for the fun, and I think a lot of like, we grew up all in the same, like, core senior group. A lot of us knew each other from, like, either playing soccer really young or other sports, and we all kind of were, like, dual sport athletes, I guess.
So you played midfielder both in high school and college, is that right?
Yeah, for the most part.
All right. So I understand, like, logically you're in the middle part of the field, but like tell us what does a midfielder do? What's their job?
Yeah, maybe is it okay if I just go over, like, defenders,
Yeah.
midfielders, forwards? Defense, I feel like, is pretty straightforward, but you normally have 4 defenders, and they'll stay back furthest from the ball, and then you have your midfielders that are kind of like the connecting link between your defenders and your forwards, and their goal is normally distribution, possession, but try to get the ball up to the forwards, and then you have your forwards that are very, creative, fast, and then they are normally the goal scorers. So, I was in the midfield, not the goal scorer. I give them a lot of props, but mainly just like the busy bee, just like taking the ball from one spot, pass it to another, and keep possession, basically.
It seems like that means you're also running the most, right?
A
Because you're
good
like kind
amount.
of doing both. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
That's the part of soccer that I would have been like, no thanks.
The 4 defenders, is that also
it
including
is
the
not.
goalie, or it's separate? Okay.
Yeah. So I was going to get into this later, but this feels like a great segue. So these are called formations for soccer. And so you can have different, like for basketball, for example, I think you normally have 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center, right? Like that's standard.
Yeah.
You're never going to have 5 centers, right? Soccer is like similar, but there's a little bit more leeway into like, oh, would I rather have 3 forwards and 3 midfielders? Or you can have 4 midfielders and 2 forwards. And so you can change the formation depending on personnel on your team, or it can be strategic based off of the other team. Maybe they have a really good midfield, and so you want to bring more people on your team into the midfield. Um, so yeah, those formations is kind of just how you're like set up as a team, I guess.
Okay.
Okay. That may help us when we watch the game this weekend. I think I'm
Okay, so
gonna pay more attention. Yeah.
with basketball, they have zone defense and you can play zone or one-on-one. Is
Yep.
that something in soccer as well?
Yeah, a little bit. Probably more zone than man to man. So
Mhm.
if I'm a defender, I'm guarding the other team's forwards, and forwards can run wherever. I mean, anybody can run wherever, but they'll try to run like across the field, and you're not going to run with them all the way across the field. You're going to pass them off to the next defender and say like, "Hey, someone's coming over. They're your priority now." There are cases where like if there's someone really good on the other team and you don't want to have the chance that like somebody isn't going to pick them up if you pass them off, you can say like you are covering that person and everybody else is like zone.
That's interesting. Okay. So if we go back to your career a little bit. So when at what point did you realize that like, oh, I might be good enough to play Division 1 soccer? Was that a goal from the get-go, or is something you like slowly over the high school years started to think that's a possibility?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't think there was an exact moment where I was like, "Oh, I could continue." I think soccer is like all I knew. I
Mm,
played it growing up, and I think you have this deep love for a sport and you're like, "Well, I don't want to stop. Like I want
yeah.
to continue playing." Oh, it's very very typical for club teams to go to tournaments and stuff where they're college showcases, and it's like a centralized spot where all of the coaches will come in and you send like almost your resume out to these coaches and you say like, "Hey, I'm interested in your program. This is my schedule this week. Would love for you to like come take a look." And so that was kind of how I found Ohio University in the first place. I have a pretty good story, I would say. So my sister went to Miami University. Um and I was in pretty constant communications with their coaching staff. And I vividly remember coming home after school one day and I was picking up the phone. I was going to call their assistant coach and put in my verbal offer of like, I'm going to go, like, I'm committing to Miami University to play. And before I could get those words out, he said, "Hey, Molly, I just want to let you know, like, I gave away your spot to someone else." And I was like, "Okay, thank
Wow.
you." Yeah, so I was pretty torn, but I think it
Yeah.
was a blessing in disguise a little bit. So shortly after we were at like it was kind of just like a scrimmage really. And there was a Ohio coach, and I think he was like the only one that was there. And he kind of was like, "Hey, all our spots are filled for this next year, but we'd love for you to walk on and just like have you a part of the program." And that's kind of how it all got started. So
Oh, I didn't realize you were a walk-on. So you became a scholarship player later, but you started off as a walk-on.
yeah.
So that's cool because you played in and at least seemed like every game or almost every game. I mean, I couldn't quite do the math at like how many games there were per season, but the numbers seemed like it had to have been almost every game, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of
Okay.
them.
All right. Well, that's pretty impressive then to go from like walk on to playing.
Yeah.
So do you remember your first game?
I do. I don't know if it was my very first game, but it might have been one of my like childhood best friends growing up. Her name was Chloe, and she was actually on our Perrysburg championship team. She's the goalie. She went to go play at UNC Greensboro. This might have been my sophomore year now that I say this out loud. In our preseason, she was actually the goalie and I was on the field. So we
Oh,
were like
that's
playing
cool.
each other and it was a cool
Yeah.
like full circle moment. Yeah. Another actually early game in the career of like OU. I don't know if it's the first one. They all blend together. But we
Yeah.
played Indiana
That
University.
was your first game. That's where I was going with this. Because of course,
Oh,
you may be aware that I went to Indiana University.
trick question.
Yeah. It actually your bio, I wouldn't have figured this out, but your bio listed that that was your first game. So then I was like, okay, let me go find some stats on that because obviously they don't play much, right? They're not in the same conferences. So
Yeah,
that
no.
was your very first game. So and it
Yeah.
was only a 1-0 loss by Ohio. The year before, which I guess would have been your senior year in high school, they played 2 years in a row, which I think was maybe they had some kind of a like deal because there was one at
Yep.
each campus, right? So they probably made a deal. That was a much bigger loss. So I attributed the improvement
Oh,
from the 2 years to your play. I mean, that's clearly what the biggest difference was. So yeah.
clearly. Yeah,
But I did
of
think that it was
course.
kind of funny because, if you've listened to any of our podcasts, I figured out a way to get IU into the storyline in some way. And I was like, I don't know I'm not going to be able to do that because, like, I don't know much about soccer. And then when I read that, I was like, yes,
I
I can
think
now
that's
talk
the only
about
reason
IU.
why I'm here is because
It's
we did
definitely
play
not.
IU. I don't know.
It's definitely not because I didn't know that until we had already asked you and I was prepping. So, but I did think that was funny that I managed to get my Indiana plugged in one way or another.
So what does conditioning look like for a high school versus college? I was a Division 3 athlete, and I'm sure we didn't condition even to the length that you did, but what does that look like?
It's not fun.
Hmm.
Lots of running for soccer, I'd assume, like endurance?
Yeah, so for soccer, the way we would start our season is it's a fall sport, but we come in for preseason, which is typically 2 weeks ahead of the school season starting. And it's kind of unique. No one's there besides athletes. And the very first thing you do on your first day is a fitness test. And depending on the year and circumstances and tests, it pretty much depends on your playing time after that. It's like if you're fit enough to play, you need to pass this test. And if you don't, that's you're not able to like participate as fully as some other members on the team. And so a lot of that we would have a beep test, which I try to put out of my memory as much as I can. But there's a different length that cones are set up. And basically pretty self-explanatory. You have to make it there and back before it beeps. And the beeps get
Oh,
faster. And there's different levels, different iterations of the test. But that was one way that for ours, I think you had to get past level 25 to be
Oh my
considered like,
goodness.
yeah.
holy mackerel.
And then just a lot of conditioning in the off season, a lot of strength training, and then running around a track and just like keeping your base fitness so that when you go into the summer, they give you a plan. It's like a binder that you get of like, this is the third Monday of summer. This is what you should be doing. And
Oh,
it's like,
wow.
sounds good. So yeah, fitness is a big part of the soccer world.
I was going to ask what you miss and what you don't, but I'm guessing this is part of what you don't miss.
Absolutely not. And
Yeah.
I will be the first to admit I was not the fittest on the team. It was always a joke of like, "Oh my god, how are you playing because you did not do well."
And we talked about offsides a little, so let's just jump into it because I hear the term all the time. I hear it in hockey, I hear it in soccer. I'm sure there's another sport where this comes up. I don't know if they all mean different things in the different sports or if they're similar. So, what does offsides really mean?
We got this. All right. So, we're going to start with the basketball analogy.
Okay.
So, in basketball, like you can run anywhere on the court at any time, right? And there's like the cherry picking aspect, like my center can go and just stand under the hoop. If we get the ball, we can throw it to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so offsides is basically trying to eliminate that in soccer so that you don't have a forward that just goes and stands all the way down by the goalie. And so the way that they put that rule in place is you kind of have to stay in line with their last defender.
Okay. So
Does that
one of
make
the
sense?
forwards can't get on the other side of a defender. The
Yeah,
goalie is not part of that math, right?
correct. Yes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the way that you can pass that defender is if once the ball gets kicked. So if I try to kick a ball to you, Beth,
Mm-hmm.
once I kick that ball, it is fair game. There's no more like rules up in the air. And
Okay,
so,
so the forward actually
Okay.
could pass a defender in that
yeah,
case. Okay.
But the ball has to be on the other side of the defender when you get to it, or no?
no, it just has
Okay.
to be once the ball is kicked. That's kind of like if you think about it as a race, like the
Okay.
start line is the last defender, and you can't start the race until that ball is kicked. And once they kick the ball, it's
Okay.
like you're off to the races. You can go anywhere you want. Now, if they pass it to somebody, you have to come back on sides because now, like, you still have to be in that last line of defense.
So it's like while the ball's in the air is
Yeah,
when like the rules are suspended, sort
absolutely.
of. Yeah. Okay. And then when the next player catches it, if you were on the wrong side, then that's offsides.
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
why is it controversial? Because it feels like this is something that people like argue about. Is it like is it like the inches of like, oh, was she not, right? Like a
Yeah.
hair over. Is that where the controversy comes?
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think up until this year, FIFA had rules where like if you're like like not even inches, centimeters,
Okay.
if you were like off of the defender, you were offsides. But the
Okay.
argument is like that's not make or break of like a foot race. And so now I
Yeah.
think the rule has changed it where it has to be like a majority of you is past the defender. I could be lying. That might not be the
Okay.
rule. But that's where the controversy comes in is like, well, they were barely offsides. Kind of like
Okay.
they barely touched the end line in basketball, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So it's sort of the basketball kind of equivalent is like I forget if it's 3 or 5 second rule. Like you can't just stand in the paint. You
Yeah.
have to keep coming out. Just to your point, to kind of avoid like the unfair advantage. It's just the soccer version of that.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
actually feel smarter, legitimate soccer smarter now. That didn't take long.
Hockey probably is similar because they have defenders and forwards, right?
It's a little different because
Okay.
nothing can be easy. Have a blue line. And so that's like their last defender. And so the puck actually has to like cross that blue line before anybody else can come in and start to play. But it's a similar concept.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you guys go to a soccer game, so like the Carolina Ascent game, a good visual that you guys can use to look for like the offsides is each sideline will have a ref running up and down the sidelines. And wherever they're standing, that is like the offsides line because they're always going to be in line with the
Okay.
last defender. So you can always kind of take a look at that to say, like, if you draw an imaginary line straight across where he or she is standing, that would be like the offsides line.
Okay.
All right. I legitimately feel smarter. I feel like in the 5 minutes of this, I actually know more than I did before. So that's good. It's a good
My
start.
job here is done. Yeah.
Exactly.
What do you think the hardest position is on the field to play?
Honestly, I think forward.
Midfielder. I was
No,
gonna say
no.
midfielder.
No, I give a lot of credit to forwards because they have a lot of pressure on them to score, and I think people get really mad at them when they're like they miss a shot and people on their couch are like, "I could have scored that." They have a lot of pressure and they're also really talented with like creativity. If you watch their feet, I mean, they just move a million miles a minute, like stepping over the ball, moving the ball. They're just really creative, so I give them a lot of credit.
Can you tell based on like the movements when a shot on goal is about to happen? Because like I think from somebody who doesn't understand it, and I know this isn't what's happening, but it's what it looks like, is we're just like kicking the ball all over the place, right? But I know that there is like that is much more coordinated than that. But I think where I've struggled with soccer is like I feel like I can't tell when something's about to happen. So you just feel like you're like they just score. Like I don't know, it just feels very random.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when someone is over the ball, I mean, this is like a trained eye almost. I think
Mhm.
when someone is like over the ball, they, and when I guess what I mean by that is like their body is like straight up and down over the ball. They're more focused on either trying to like get around a defender, but once you like plant your foot and start like winding up a little bit, I think that would mimic like they're going to shoot it or they're at least thinking
Yeah.
about this.
Okay.
Now, obviously, it's happening very quickly in real time, but I would say based off of like those movements would give you a little insight.
Is that what you watch when you watch a game? Are you watching the ball or are you watching like the way the players are kind of moving with each other?
I usually watch outside the ball. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
you kind of have to watch the ball,
Yeah.
but if you look away from the ball, there's a lot happening, like runs and runs that don't even get the ball, but it opens up more space for like somebody else to run into. And so it's interesting to see that like ebb and flow and this whole like masterpiece start to take place before a goal happens.
Yeah. That's cool.
So, is it true that players fake injuries?
Absolutely. I mean, the most common one to do would be to like to waste time. Like
Yeah.
if you're up by a goal
Okay.
and there's 5 minutes left and it's like really high intensity action. Like, yeah, I'm going to be like, oh, they stepped on my foot and like I need a second, right? But never the call an ambulance out, I'm on the ground, none of those theatrics, just like, hey, I need a second type of thing.
So, how long will the refs give you for something like that to like waste time?
Probably not a lot. They usually know what's going on. They are very smart and are like, okay, that didn't look too terrible unless it's like a freak accident, let's get up, keep going. So not a lot of room for error in there.
I would think too, because there's not as many stoppages of play as there are like again in basketball or
Yeah.
football. So I would think sometimes it's just like to catch your breath. Everybody's like, yeah, no, stay down, stay down. I just need a minute to like
Yeah,
to be able to breathe again.
I agree. Yeah, yeah. Bring the water out.
Yeah, exactly.
As someone new to soccer, yes, I did watch a lot of soccer in high school, had a lot of friends that played, but honestly, I couldn't tell you the first thing about the game. It was just a bunch of people on the field kicking the ball,
Yeah.
and I didn't know what was going on. But what is the one thing you wish that American sports fans, maybe with other sports, understood about the game of soccer?
For not asking a lot of questions, that's a pretty deep question, Jenny. I think I don't know, maybe this is a biased answer, but it's not as easy as it looks type of thing.
Okay.
I think a lot of the time there's just a lot that goes into, I kind of talked about it earlier, but like if someone didn't run to the left, that space in the middle wouldn't have been open. There's just like a lot of interconnected webs and a lot of stuff that happens ahead of time in order for like that final result to happen. And it's a huge team sport. I mean, if one person is jogging, but everybody's winning or running, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. And it takes all 11 people on the field, where I'm not so sure that's maybe the same in other sports. But so yeah, maybe just how like rigorous it can be at times, maybe.
The running alone looks hard enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it, like
Yeah.
an hour and a half? If you take away the stoppage time and adding that on, how long is an actual game?
Beth, do you know?
90 minutes, I
She
think.
says with confidence, yep,
Yeah, 90
that's
minutes.
right. Yeah, yeah, 90 minutes.
Yeah,
So it's
that's a lot
normally
of
two
running.
45-minute halves.
Yeah. And then if it ends in 0-0, there's extra time. And yeah, so explain ties to us. As a player, that has to annoy you, right? It's like 90 minutes of killing yourself, and then like it's like nothing happened at the end of it. That has to be
Yeah.
awful.
So the soccer point system is a little different than other sports. So like basketball, you take wins and losses. I don't know if they do points. But for soccer, if you win, you get 3 points. If you tie, you get 1
Okay.
point. And if you lose, you get 0.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't say a lot of the time you're playing to not lose, but like in a scenario where if we're playing against Indiana and we're not expected to win, we'd be very thrilled to take away 1 point from that.
Okay.
0-0, because it's something that's you still get something at the end of the day for like
Okay.
the overall picture. But yeah, I mean, if you are a true competitor, I mean, you're going to be mad that like it's 0-0. Like we should have
Yeah.
scored, right? Yeah.
So for people that make it to like the pros and are playing in the World Cup, how long does it really take to get to that level? Like, we have minor league baseball and they have farm teams and all of that. Is that true in the soccer world as well, that you have many, many different levels before you actually get to that professional level?
Yeah. Much more so over in England and Europe. It's happening a little bit now in the United States. Like there's the USL and some of those teams. There's like the minor league of MLS right now. And so you'll see for Charlotte FC, it's called Crown Legacy. And those players are in the Charlotte FC system developing, and some of them get called up to
Oh.
play with Charlotte FC. But that's more so like inter squad, I guess, or like inter club. But I know, Beth, you've watched Welcome to Wrexham, but
Mhm.
that's like a different story on the English side. Is like they don't just have that top tier, they have many, many tiers of teams. And depending on if you win or lose that year, like you could go down a tier and play like all these different teams. And so it's much more competitive over in England, for example, because if you have a really bad season, you'll get relegated down to the next tier, versus in the MLS, if you have a really bad year, you just go on vacation and you come back next year and you're still in the MLS, right? Like there's not a lot of repercussions when it comes to that. So yeah, it's much more serious over.
Yeah. I find that so interesting that someone at top level can actually be taken down a notch and not play at that same level the next year.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I think on the women's side, so the NWSL, that's the National Women's Soccer League. So is that like the equivalent to what we like MLS, right? It's part of MLS.
I don't
Or it's the
actually know that.
highest tier of women's professional soccer
Yes.
in the US. So then
Yes.
like the Carolina Ascent, which is, for our listeners, is the Charlotte women's soccer team. Do you know where they fit into all of that? That's a different league, right?
Yeah, I believe it's the USLW League,
Okay.
which is similar to the Charlotte Independence, if you're familiar with them.
Oh,
It's like the
okay.
men's semi-professional
Yeah.
league. So I believe that's what the Carolina Ascent is
Okay.
or are, but
But those women, they're not like, that's not a farm team for a higher tier. Like, so they're not getting called up like the way minor league baseball works. That's not they're in their own league. I
yeah,
guess they could try out for one of those other teams, but they're not going to get called up like mid-season to go play for somebody else.
right. I think the
Okay.
only exception would be like if you're on Carolina Ascent and you're really, really good, there might be an NWSL team that like buys out the rest
Okay.
of your contract and then maybe like
Gotcha.
takes you. I don't know if that's legal
Okay.
or not, but
Yeah.
I could
But
see
it's not
that.
necessarily a farm system, the way you were talking
Yeah.
about the Charlotte FC, where maybe you could go like back and forth. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Alrighty.
So the World Cup is coming up, right? Isn't it?
It is, yeah, the FIFA World Cup.
So,
Yeah.
so they're going to play multiple places in the U.S. Is it this year or next year?
This year.
This year.
It's this year. Okay. So, like, what does that tournament look like? Explain a little bit about the World Cup. That's something I am fascinated with. That's like the one time I will sit down and watch soccer for sure.
It's the largest international soccer tournament. And so it's a huge thing, happens every 4 years. And like you said, it's in North America this year, which is a really cool thing. It goes to different locations similar to like the Olympics. I don't know the exact specifications of like how you qualify, but it's not like, hey, I want to come to the FIFA World Cup this year. You have to meet specific guidelines, I guess, or you have to win certain matches to get in. And then they host everybody starts in like a pool. And so every pool has 4 teams. And you have to win your group stages to like make it into the actual tournament that you would see in like March Madness. And it's crazy because sometimes you'll get the Cinderella stories of really small teams that just have like the best 3 games of their life and they'll beat a top dog. And Italy didn't make it this year, I believe. And that's like pretty crazy. The coach stepped down because of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So definitely a good thing to tune into.
And they have to play every team in their group before the next stage. Is that a true statement?
It is, yeah. So there's 4 teams in a group, so you'll play 3 games. And then similar to the point system that we talked about, if you win a game, you get 3 points. And if you tie, you get 1 point. And so I think it's the top 2 teams from each group advance to like the knockout stage is what they call it, where it's that typical seeded and the tree and everything.
So here's my dumb question. Is the World Cup just men's soccer or it's men's and women's?
Men's and women's.
Because I feel like that when they've been talking about what's coming to the US this summer, I guess for some reason the way I talked about it, I thought it was men's only, but that may just be because I'm not paying enough attention to it.
No, very strategically, they don't host them on the same year so they can get more
Okay.
viewership
Okay.
throughout different years. So I think
So
it's
this
like,
one is the men's only, what's playing in the US this year specifically.
I think so, or else
Yeah.
I might look like a fool. But I
Yeah.
think it's
No, I
men's
think
only.
that's right. Yeah. Okay.
We're
Gotcha.
used to looking like fools on this
Yeah,
show,
exactly.
so
I
you're
fit
in
right
good
in.
company.
All right, Jenny, do we have any other dumb questions? Or Molly, did you have anything else that you feel like we need to know in order to enjoy a soccer game?
No, I think maybe the only thing is the boxes on the field.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So when you look at a soccer field, there's like the center line and it has a circle around that center line. And that's like when there's a kickoff, like no one can go inside there. And then you look at each goal and each goal has a big square or a big rectangle around it and then a smaller rectangle inside of that. And the big rectangle is called the 18-yard box. Does anybody know what the purpose of that is for?
You can't, no, I was going to say you
Nope.
can't go in it to score a goal, but that's
That can't be right. Yeah.
That'd be too hard. It's where
penalty kicks.
there is a dot in there for the penalty kicks.
Oh,
So you're not wrong. It's the only place the goalie can use their hands.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's like
And
the
then there's the
goalie's
smaller
area.
Yeah. And then there's the smaller box, and that is representation. So like if I kick it and it goes way over the goal, would happen all the time. Then it goes out for a goal kick. And so that smaller box, the goalie has to place the ball anywhere in that smaller box to like restart play.
Yeah. So sometimes that's like a leading question. So sometimes the goalies throw the ball. Sometimes they
Yep.
kick the ball. Is that based on like what happened right before that? Or is that based on like their skills of like how far can they throw, how far can they kick?
Yeah, so if you shoot the ball at me and I'm a goalie and I catch it,
Hmm.
you can do basically anything you want with it. You can throw it to someone, kick it, and that's based off of like where do you want to go and how accurate are you basically.
Okay.
And so obviously you can kick it further than you can throw it, and so that is a little bit of the decision. But if the ball goes out of play over the end line, you can only kick it in. And so that has to go
Okay.
in that little box and then you kick it in from there.
Okay. All right. We definitely have learned a lot.
Yeah, you guys are going to be pros.
I
You're going to
know.
be teaching others when you go to the game.
I think in line with the podcast name, we will be pretend pros for sure.
Definitely pretend.
Absolutely.
Definitely pretend.
And one final question, Molly. So obviously you won a state championship. 10 years later, they honored that team at your high school. Can you tell us about the statue of you that is in the championship plaza at your high school?
I just have to clarify, it is not of me, as many may think it would be. It is really cool though. We had
Yes.
a lot of support. They created this championship plaza square. So right when you walk into the football and soccer stadium, there's now this big statue, and on it is a plaque of our team, every game we played with the score, and then a list of all of the people that were on it. And so it's a great way to,
Yeah.
I think, just honor the team every time you go in there. And then our cross country team actually also won state, so they've already been added ship plaza as well. So that's kind of cool. It's a whole section of champions.
It is. The only thing that would make it cooler is if you had your own personal statue. That's the only thing that would have made that better.
I don't know about that.
Well, you're the
I
only
don't
one
know.
I know that's in a championship plaza. That's a pretty cool stat.
Well,
We'll
and
take it.
I feel like very outmatched here because you both played in college. I'm not even sure if I played intramural anything in college. Very impressive.
Who's the pro now, Jenny?
Exactly.
Definitely not a pro.
As an update to this podcast, Jay and I got to go to a Carolina Ascent game on a beautiful night in Charlotte with a good friend. And we definitely had a much more enjoyable time thanks to Molly, who helped us learn a little bit about soccer and spot some things that I don't think either one of us were looking for prior to this episode. And on a positive note, the Carolina Ascent won the game 1-0. So thanks again to Molly for joining us.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode. And if you've liked what you've heard and you've stuck with us this far, we would love for you to subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We hope to see you next week.